could go back and you could describe a few of your jobs right out of college, your experiences. Where did you go right after you graduated?
Well, I worked my way through college. I told them I was 16. I had to be 18 to get a job on construction, and worked on Interstate 80. But there was a time right when you could go out to the interstates. They were building the interstate highway system, and if you looked strong and physically strong and tough looking, you know, they'd hire you. And I got hired as a laborer, and I was making more money per hour than my dad was on building Interstate 80. We worked 6 days, sometimes 7 days a week, 10 hours a day, but it was hard, dirty work, but made good money for a short period of time. And I did that for 2 or 3 summers. But back then you could work your way through college. You could almost make enough during the summer to pay the bills. And now it's impossible, and that's something society and the powers that be have really cheated this generation, requiring them dumping all this debt on them. It's immoral, it's wrong, and it's a blemish on our whole generation of political leaders who are taking advantage of young people by not providing them with the funds necessary for an education. But anyway, first job I worked with the Heart Association in Illinois, Heart Association. I worked at Farmall, which was a factory across the river. We made tractors when I was in graduate school. Just got married and needed a job, and tried to go do both. We used to drive back and forth to Iowa City. Farmall got me into the union movement, UAW. I learned about unions. And I learned about it when I was in the laborers union out on Interstate 80. But you know, the symbolism, there's another symbol that was just depressing. Farmall is right across from the Rock Island Arsenal. If you look across that bay, the arsenal was growing. It was during the Vietnam War in the 60s. I mean, it was up to almost 8,000 people. Meanwhile, Farmall, when we made tractors, it was dying off, and it closed in 1978. So what's the teachings of the Catholic Church and the Gospels? We're supposed to be turning our swords into plowshares. We were doing just the opposite. Closing places like Farmall that made tractors and plowshares, and expanding the military-industrial complex, which Dwight D. Eisenhower warned us was going to be the cause of this ruination of this country, and the military gets so powerful that it basically runs everything. So that was sort of a tragic period, you know, and I used to say we should have a university over at Arsenal as well as a military, but we still should. We have a research university there on Arsenal Island, and maybe someday that'll come to pass. I mean, you know, we need that in the Midwest and this area anyway. But other jobs, then I ran for mayor when I was 27. Best thing ever happened to get elected, because probably wouldn't know what to do. But next year I ran for the legislature, got like state representative and a state senator, and kept active in politics. But I've always had to do something else. Politics has never really paid the bills. It's hardly pays anything. You know, I was making $5,500 a year in the legislature, and most people are making $27,000, you know, a regular job. So I've always had to do something else. And I've sold real estate. I got my real estate license in '71. Why? I enjoy selling houses, but people don't want to hire you when you're controversial. And I was a bit controversial. I said what was on my mind. I questioned authority. And most companies want you stupid and docile, and you get involved in the Cub Scouts, the Girl Scouts, or the safe little things, but don't take on the system. But I was trained and taught and encouraged to always question authority and take on the system when they're wrong and try to make it right and better. And I'll never back down from that, because that was the best education I ever got, was at St. Ambrose.
Well, you said you ran for mayor when you were 27?
Yes.
Yeah. How did you gain the steam to go out so fast like that?
Well, I was all involved in civil rights movement and Young Democrats and politics, going to all the rallies, helping other candidates. So I majored in political science. Had that instilled in me the desire to make a difference and try to change the world and look out for the average person, the common person, and you know, the common good as opposed to the special interest and the corporate greed. And so it was just a natural outgrowth. When I was in the union movement, I was working and used to be a member of the local political action committee at Farmall, and it just natural migration into, or transition into, active elected politics, and thought I could do more good there by being a legislator, state representative, state senator. And you can affect the lives of a lot more people in a positive or negative way. And I think for the most part we've tried to do it in a positive way. I mean, we voted against capital punishment reinstitution in Iowa, and one of the few states, I think only 13, that still don't have that. That's part of the gospel of the Catholic Church, social teachings, you know. Created the Iowa Housing Finance Authority to help people get into a decent housing. Fought for low-income people all my life when I was in the legislature, trying to look out for the underdog. I mean, corporate America and the rich and the powerful, they're well represented, and always will be, because politics today is so much about money, you know. He who pays the piper calls the tune, and that's one of the problems with Congress today. It's a totally separate issue, is that we got the best Congress money can buy. And that's why nothing gets done. The only interests they look out for the most part, are those that pay the big PAC checks and contribute to their campaigns. I don't care whether they're Democrat or Republican. They're all owned one degree or another. Democrats are, by and large, better in terms of trying to occasionally look out for people, but not a whole hell of a lot's happened. We still don't have health care for 42 million people. We got 37 million in poverty. We got a war raging, and they should pull the plug on it. But overall, their philosophy, at least philosophically, is more in line with my philosophy, and I think the philosophy and teachings of the Catholic Church, the best social traditions we've had, going back to the encyclicals and the Gospels.
What would you say are your most rewarding contributions that you yourself personally or in a group at St. Ambrose with O'Connor that you've given to society?
Well, I think
moments.
Probably just the effort of trying to change things, being involved in the civil rights movement, as far as, and not giving up the spark and the fire and the ability, trying to make a difference, helping to elect other people, not quitting, not giving up, not turning this over to corporate America totally. As far as specifics, I was in the Iowa legislature. I represented Cusack, who's a good friend of mine, graduate of St. Ambrose. We sponsored, I came up with this idea of the Iowa Housing and Finance Authority, which provides money now for housing, like Mary Crest campus was renovated under that program. St. Catherine, St. Mark's was renovated. The Crescent Macaroni made into lofts. It's a big deal. I also co-sponsored years ago legislation to provide the tax on cans and stuff, the 2 cents back then. Dealt with a lot of other, we had nursing home reform. So I always thought people that were shunned from society, hidden away from society, like senior citizens and old people, are usually the ones worst off, and big neck. Nobody represents them. They can't contribute. They didn't do anything except become old. The laws on the books in Iowa, having nursing home reform and accounting, accountability was due to my efforts. Adoption reform. I've maintained my position on pro-life. I'm a pro-life Democrat, and I've not ever changed on that and backed down, because I think life begins at conception. And I was in the legislature when Roe versus Wade came down, and we would have ruled against that. We would have not passed abortion in Iowa. It would have lost about 9-3, but the Supreme Court took that authority away from us. And so, and I think, that's human life begins at conception. I'm going to back down from that. Nobody's proven me other time. I think someday, maybe when I'm long gone, society is going to look back on this period of abortion upon demand as a very barbaric period in our history. We used to burn witches at the stake because we didn't consider them human. We didn't consider blacks human. We considered chattel. This is part of it. It may take a while, but I think someday we're going to be proved that, we should have listened. But, that's not the way it is today. But I'm hoping things will change in time. Maybe they won't, but at least you can try. So commitment, and a deep-seated commitment, I think, to social and economic justice, to try to put into practice those encyclicals and those teachings and those natural moral law principles that were instilled in me as a student by people like Father Bill and Father Ed and Dr. Matthew McMahon and others. That's hopefully a little contribution. Probably not enough. There's a lot more to do. There always will be, but at least we're trying to make this country be a more perfect union, which is what the Constitution says we should do.